Jason here from JCR Cars. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is all about living with a classic Ferrari, and in particular with my Testarossa here. Now, if you've been following my story, you probably know that the last year and a half have been a little bit mechanically interesting for this car. And by interesting, I mean the kind that keeps your mechanic's bills paid. Alright, so owning a 35 to 40-year-old classic car means things are going to wear out, and you should expect it. But sometimes they're going to wear out in the most inconvenient places that require a trailer ride, and that's the challenge for me. Now, let's rewind to August of 2024. I was coming back from Overtown, exactly the same road that I posted a video on with the Ferrari 328 a couple days ago. And what should happen is I was driving back about 15 minutes from home, I lost power. The car started to backfire, I had to pull over, and this ended up being a trailer ride back to home and then eventually back to my mechanic. And that required, at the end of the day, 2 fuel pumps decided to give up the ghost. And that actual repair ended up costing around 850 euros, plus the trailer ride of 560 euros. So that's one of the examples of living with a Ferrari with a Testarossa. All right, so let's fast forward to September of the same year, September 6th actually. I was coming back from a drive, and as I was pulling into the garage, I noticed the car started to lose power. Now this was strange, and eventually it stopped. I restarted again, stayed running for a couple seconds, stopped, and eventually wouldn't restart. Now what happened? It turns out the Bosch relays that sit on top of the coils, well, they both decided to give up the ghost at the same time. And that means replacing those parts. Now thankfully they're little Bosch parts and they're quite easy to get and they're not expensive, so I don't really see that as a big problem. However, a couple weeks later as I was coming back from another drive, the car stopped again completely, and this time it was the coils that let go. So actually the part that the relays were sitting on top of, and both coils. And I have to remind you, the Testarossa is a unique car. It is a flat 6, but essentially it is 2 6-cylinder engines put together. And that quite often means that everything is duplicated. 2 relays on the top of the coils, 2 coils, 2 fuel pumps. You get the point. So those 2 coils costed just a little bit over 1,200 euros, plus the 560 euros to trailer it back to my mechanic, and that marked the end of my season at the end of September. So not quite 3 months of driving in reality with the Testarossa.
Now who doesn't love a pop-up headlight on a classic Ferrari, and especially on a Testarossa? However, in the springtime, both of those motors gave up and I had to replace them. Now it's either that, or as cars were driving by me, I would be winking at them with the left light. So that's a little embarrassing, means you need to replace them. And over the winter time, I finally had the odometer rebuilt because it was running at 3 times the normal speed. Not good obviously when you're trying to keep track of your kilometers in this car. So there was another 900 euros almost to have that little puppy rebuilt.
And now we have one more problem, it's the clutch. It's actually losing fluid, brake fluid actually. It's coming out of the bottom of the bell housing. There was a seal that was replaced, of course, combined with a trailer ride back to my mechanic. So 786 euros for the seal and for the labor, 560 euros for the trailer ride back. And unfortunately, it is not the solution. So we're still working on that one. In the last year and a half, it's costed me around 4,700 euros to have this car, half of which is the cost for parts. So if you're thinking about buying one, you should be prepared for that. And just to give you some kind of an idea, the 328 is about a third of the running cost of this car. So definitely far easier to use than this one. Now, finding a good Ferrari mechanic is not easy, especially when you live in a small Austrian town in the mountains. Fortunately, I have found a good one. He's a certified Ferrari shop, but it means there is a trailer ride, as you've heard from me, to get to the shop, and that makes it a little bit more complicated, of course. Now, my mechanic has been quite cautious in terms of replacing parts, particularly in regards to the clutch issue. He's only replacing things that he really thinks are suspect of causing the problem. Unfortunately, that has backfired a little bit. It's costed me driving time, it's costed more trailer time, in this case, but I would rather have somebody that is actually taking his time trying to figure out really what is the problem as opposed to throwing cash or my cash at it to fix the problem. Now in terms of the clutch, it looks like I'm going to have to replace the clutch release bearing support flange. Now I know that's a real mouthful. Now this part unfortunately is now back ordered from Super Performance in the UK, so going to have to find another solution, probably going to have it custom made in order to get this part back sooner so I can still make use of the driving season. Of course, it's going to mean it's going to cost more money. That is a real challenge. And unfortunately, this is something that Ferrari parts in general are plagued with. Back in the 80s and 90s, Ferrari made a decision to farm this business out, sell those parts off. And so there is a real lack of availability of parts. Typically, you're going to find most of them in the UK. They are going to be a bit more of a premium. However, as of late, Ferrari has insisted on having these parts reproduced. There's more stock coming online. Exactly where and to what models that's being thrown to, I'm not really certain of. But this is good for us as classic owners. It means that we're going to be able to drive our cars with a little more ease in terms of finding things. But it is one of the challenges of classic car ownership. I hope that gives you some insight into owning a classic Ferrari. Just know this, parts are going to fail. You don't know which ones are going to fail, but granted they will fail, and that's going to cost you some money and some aggravation. But I hope that gives you some insight into this. They definitely need to be driven. That's how they work best. I would definitely prefer that opposed to putting it on a lawn and giving it some trophy for some best in class. I think that's really the wrong way to enjoy this hobby. Anyways, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching and subscribing. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below, and we'll see you in the next video.